It's a surreal experience for me because I think like seeing a movie twice is not everybody's cup of tea. But I actually, like I wanted to watch it again because I very loved it the first time I saw it, even though in the pirated version I still remember. Uh, it did have the Quentin Tarantino's complete blood gore towards the end of the final act of the film, which was actually what Quentin Tarantino was known for. I mean, even if you look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the movie is all about, like a couple of people discussing about different movies, and then they're sitting and then they're watching television shows, the famous American television shows, The Man from Uncle, the FBI, and, like various spoof-offs of all the Italian and the European art cinema that happened during that point of time. But also, it is being shown through the lens of Hollywood.
Hi Abhinandan, welcome back to my podcast, which is called Spoiler Alert with me, Cinephile Sanket. So Abhinandan, first of all, let me start this podcast by wishing you a very, very, very happy birthday to you, bro. I know we are recording this on your birthday night, so happy birthday to you, bro.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Really appreciate.
yeah, you're most welcome. So today we are discussing one of your favorite director. On your birthday, we are discussing one of your favorite director, which is my favorite director's film, which is called Quentin Tarantino's ninth film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Margot Robbie, and Brad Pitt, and there are many others as well. We'll obviously talk about those actors as well in a short while. So, first of all, Abhinandan, when did you watch this film for the first time ever? And when you watch this film, how was it like? And compared to when you rewatch this film, how was it like? Just tell me about it.
Okay. So I think this film came way back in 2019 or a little before that. I'm not exactly sure of the
2019,
year.
2019. I think
But
in
yeah,
monsoon of
June was the release date for the film, right? So actually, what I did was, a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but I saw the pirated version first of the film. Yeah, because I was that anticipating about the film. I was waiting for quite a long time for this to come out. And then I think because of the Indian timelines and the schedule that happens, it got released in August, like towards the Independence Day. I still remember it because I went into IMAX to watch the film. It's a surreal experience for me because I think like seeing a movie twice is not everybody's cup of tea. But I actually, like I wanted to watch it again because I very loved it the first time I saw it, even though in the pirated version I still remember. Uh, it did have the Quentin Tarantino's complete blood gore towards the end of the final act of the film, which was actually what Quentin Tarantino was known for. Like even if you look at some of his, like his previous predecessors, like all
Pulp
the films like
Fiction
Kill
and
Bill,
anyone,
Kill Bill,
pick anyone.
Pulp Fiction, yeah, and even the other one, which I'm forgetting, the World War II film, which even had that cameo from Eli Roth where he comes with a big hammer and squashes,
World
like
War
Christopher.
Two. I think it was a civil war. I think
About yeah, the Civil War film. What was that? I'm
the
forgetting the
Hateful
name of
Eight.
the Hateful before the Hateful Eight. Brad Pitt
Before
was there.
okay, Brad.
I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. World War. Oh my God, Inglorious Bastards.
Glorious Bastards. Yes, yeah. So see that what happens is like when you get too immersed with the filmmaker and the filmmaking itself, you tend to forget things. But that's what I remember. I remember Brad Pitt's mustache. I remember the Christopher, who was the actor that he was in one the Bond villain. Like he was actually like one of the popular villains, and he was getting a lot of this negative roles with Tim Burton's Big Eyes and like Christoph Waltz actually.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. So I think like I became a huge admirer of this, and this coming back to Quentin Tarantino, this actually was his ninth film. A little bit surprisingly, this was his final film too in the series. After which I think right now he's preparing for his tenth, or maybe he has taken a sabbatical at this moment. But I'm eagerly awaiting if there is something else lined up in his pipeline. Quentin Tarantino is also like you can almost say that he is like a prodigy of Alfred Hitchcock. So, like throughout a decade of
Around
Hollywood
like gas
television
like
and film
12-year-old
academy,
boys.
like, he has been giving surprising cameos throughout various television shows. And he has been, like steep into the filmmaking culture. The man is just a huge consumer of movies. I think that's where we all relate with him. I mean, even if you look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the movie is all about, like a couple of people discussing about different movies, and then they're sitting and then they're watching television shows, the famous American television shows, The Man from Uncle, the FBI, and, like various spoof offs of all the Italian and the European art cinema that happened during that point of time. But also, it is being shown through the lens of Hollywood. Hollywood, like like the '80s Hollywood at that point of time, when conspiracy, thriller, like murder theories, they all were like cropping up, and obviously it is based upon the famous Sharon Tate murder by Charles Manson, who was actually one of the biggest dark times of the Hollywood era. And surprisingly, this actually, like this entire thing, like how it culminated, very few people know about it. Like I was surprised when David Heyman, the famous producer of Harry Potter films, was actually sitting at the Oscar round table with the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood cast, because he was also the producer of the film. It's a surprising fact, which I even found out, and I thought that was a pretty interesting, very weird, but very like fitting Quentin Tarantino project. So that was my feeling, but I obviously want to know, Sanket, like what was yours when you watched the film?
So unlike you, I didn't watch the pirated version. I had the choice, but I didn't watch it. But nevertheless, I waited for the release of India, like the official India theatrical release, and I watched
Yeah,
this film as part of my project to review this film, because I had a task to review this film for my college project. So I was like, this like there was this English film and there was another Hindi film, and I was like, okay, fuck
yeah,
that. I will not watch that Hindi film, but there is Quentin motherfucking Tarantino's film releasing in India, and I should watch that as well. Like, why should I watch that indie film? I should watch this film. So I watched this film. So quite honest reaction for me was I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Like
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
sure,
and I think everyone knows it, bro. Okay, that where everyone is coming from, why, like why are people not liking this kind of film, this particular film, I
right.
would say, because we
Mhm,
all know,
mhm,
and you just said it correctly, that at the end we all know that Quentin Tarantino has made like violent films out of after film after films, uh, like
right,
mostly violent films, and this film is like a drama, and like the journey of the actor and his stunt double, and like what
right.
all things happen in between them, like surrounding them, and even Sharon Tate. And I didn't get it, bro. Like obviously I couldn't get it. But obviously, when I watched this film in theaters, I was like very sleepy. Me and my friend were actually like watching this film in theaters, and like I was
Right.
sleepy. I was watching the film like this, like oh my god, like what am I watching it? But when the third act came, I would
Yeah.
actually mention this when I when in the last 25-minute marker, when the third act came, my entire I was like, okay, now I've gotta fucking watch this film. What happens? Because like all the violence, all the Tarantino elements starts to actually finally kick in, and that's where I got the entire kick of that film. After like watching this film, my friend told me that, okay, like what the fuck did I watch? Like apart from the ending, it was like didn't work out for him and as well for me as well. But uh, like it took me some time, bro. Like this film actually took me some time after the release. I thought like, okay, I can rewatch this film, and I should rewatch this film, and then I rewatched this film, just not looking that it's a Tarantino film, but just looking at it as a just a film about Hollywood, and just like two like a journey about two characters, I would say. like that actually got me attracted to watch this film more and more and more, and like I got invested into this character, these two characters more, and even like the other characters as well. So and I fucking loved that fight sequence between uh, Bruce Lee's character and Brad Pitt's
Uh,
character,
yeah,
and
yeah,
was that
absolutely.
was fucking awesome, bro. Like that that was that coolest shit ever I like got to saw after the fight
And
sequence
I,
at the ends fight sequence. But yeah, you were saying
I believe,
something, yeah.
no, actually, I believe it. There are a couple of cool sequences to talk about. Uh, okay, now why it was a different and a unique filmmaking experience, like for filmmaking, like a film consuming experience for me would be, I think this was a very unlikely Quentin Tarantino film. You never get to see a comedy film from Quentin Tarantino, and if you look at it purely, the genre is a comedy drama, right?
Mhm.
Second thing is Quentin Tarantino is a historian, so he's very steeped into the culture. He's an 80s child. He's a Hollywood kid. He's a true student of cinema, and it definitely shows. So like when today, if you watch Gangubai, right? If you look at the Sanjay Leela Bhansali film, you will going to see Devaran Skala Patthar and the other film posters being hang around in the entire setting and the setup. This film was also entirely the same. However, can you imagine like two people, you look like two people just sitting together and watching FBI and they're discussing about it and you're chuckling in your seats, like exactly what they're talking about, So there's this one particular FBI scene and there's a huge reference to like those great escape movies and sort of that escapade and like there's a truck coming in and like Leonardo DiCaprio surprisingly coming out of behind the truck and he's shooting people and then obviously there's the famous flamethrower scene which is very very ingeniously like utilized in the final act of the film, like where definitely there's this fight between the three people and it's a culmination of three generations of Hollywood. You have Austin Butler, you have Margaret Robbie, you have Margaret Qualley, you have Leonardo DiCaprio, then you have,
Al Pacino, bro.
Al Pacino, yeah, Al Pacino towards the fingering of the thing. The 14 Guns of McCluskey, like how the way he says it, and then and there's a lot of drinking in the movie. There's a lot of those action and there's a spice of that like there's a spice of everything and then there's a lot of drinking and there's a lot of margaritas that are being sipped and then obviously there's always this fantasy to like where Hollywood is a consumer product. You also have a neighbor like Roman Polanski who's just staying next door with Sharon Tate and Rick Dalton is looking towards him and he said like why can't I have a like a feature with this guy and stuff and like they just the way they play out the fantasy towards the entire it's what makes it very intriguing, although there were a couple of letdowns I would say. I think the Spurn Ranch thing was a bit over exaggerated. I don't know, there's a very funny scene which is supposed to burst out last but it doesn't actually, where he gives a lift to Marco Quelli. He enters the Spurn Ranch and this guy wants to go and want to meet an old friend of his, George.
Hmm.
There's a character called George, and he's sleeping inside
Hmm.
this old house.
Bruce
So
Dern's
the father,
character, I think.
Bruce Dern's character, and he's entirely, and then somehow, like the way, like he pushes his entire aura, and the way he goes, and then he meets George's character, and the kind of the conflicts that come right there. It was a bit of a stretch, which I thought it was, because obviously, that screen is being stretched and stretched. I get the point. You want to meet him, just go and meet him. But the thing is, now there are the people, the girls that are coming over, and the entire. It's very, like very good, but at the very same time, it's a very huge letdown for me. I don't know. It doesn't work for me at that point of the time. The scene was a huge letdown. Couple of other things, like they also somehow delete the Charles Manson face-off with Brad Pitt, where he's fixing the antenna on top of Leonardo DiCaprio's house. Like where Leonardo DiCaprio is shooting this western with some director, and he orders Cliff to go and fix the antenna on top of his house. So he goes back, and there's a particular scene where Charles Manson does enter Sharon Tate's place, and at the same time, he also has an eye, like a kind of an eye off with Cliff Booth at the
Hmm.
same time. Also, you have a funny character like Brad Pitt. Like Brad Pitt is the scene stealer over here. Like he is making it work. But then you're not showing enough history about what's the matter with the guy. There's a lot of rumors, but that also plays to the film's strengths, I believe. Like there's a lot of rumors. That guy, the Bruce Lee scene, remember? Like they're going to have out like a very dance off, like between fights and kung fu. And then this Bruce Lee's assistant or somebody from the says, that guy is famous. And Bruce Lee can't believe it. Huh? This guy? And says, yeah, he killed his wife. Oh, this guy. And the fight begins. And it's amazing. Like that is where the fun stuff really kicks in. But also, like there are some little subtle scenes. Like there is a very beautiful scene between there's a girl and there's Leonardo DiCaprio, who's a has-been. So the girl is just starting her career with that Western film, and they both are sitting side by side, and Leonardo DiCaprio is reading a book, and the girl is reading a biopic on Walt Disney, which is very intelligent. And he said, "Are you 15?" She says, "No, I'm 8." And then she starts reading the book, and there's a very cute kind of like this two talents like coming together, and they are just like forming a huge group. I think these are like very subtle moments. Yes, the film is quite too long, and there are very subtle references to Batman even in the post-credit scene, which I don't want to talk about. But I think that let leave it for the viewers to watch the entire thing again and experience it. For me, I think it was definitely worth a watch in the theaters rather than the pirated version because I very enjoyed it out over there. The entire 4:3 format in between the scenes.
Hmm.
Like I think it starts with an interview
Yeah.
with the next like what exactly does a stunt double do, or
Hmm.
what exactly does an actor's role come in the like behind the stunt double. So it's just like those 15-minute advertises and then send those interviews and everything. So it starts off really well. It starts off in a clear black and white format with a 4:3 ratio, and then it expands into with the Leonardo DiCaprio space on Outsiders. There's
Hmm.
Casa Villa, like there's this huge billboard and there's this car, and yeah, so it's amazing.
But
And
Abhinandan, you mentioned that like the thing about Charles Manson and all those eras
yeah,
about like the reigns of. I think you might know it or not know it. I don't know about it. But the guy who played Charles Manson is the same guy who played Charles Manson in Mindhunter as well. And like he
yeah,
has a bigger role in Mindhunter season 2, and which I would say that came out like season 2 of Mindhunter just came out around that week when like the Once
yeah,
Upon a Time in Hollywood released in India. This film released in India, so people were
true.
quite excited about it. I was quite excited about it, but I couldn't watch the second season of Mindhunter. I don't know. I haven't still yet, but I was quite excited for this film. That's the thing. But I just said about like you actually just said about the era, how Quentin Tarantino retains the authenticity of the entire era of 1960s Hollywood, and like he got all the budget despite like he didn't have his long time collaborator with him, Harvey Weinstein.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
Sony obviously picked up his film and like they
The hashtag #MeToo movement, which began with him, thanks to
hmm,
him, and obviously India was very
hmm,
too quick to pick up on this.
hmm.
Anyway, but what I felt was,
Hmm.
like, I think uh, the film is it's a much longer film than we anticipate it is, because the film I feel that the film has been cut short because there was some choppy editing in between too at the same point of time. So like somehow they did manage to stitch it together and they did it well. I mean, even if you look at the Sharon Tate scene where she goes into this theater and she is looking at a film of hers and stuff like that, and there's a cutoff in between Rick is shooting this western. So somehow there's a little bit of like obviously it's stitched, but it's not stitched properly, and therefore there's a problem with the pace, which also becomes a little sluggish in between. Because obviously, if you want to see a Sharon Tate scene at that point of time, you get into that melancholy, but also in that melancholy, you're also providing a comedy, which is not sitting well with the audience at that point of time. This film is trying to be too many different things at the same time. That's the problem with the film. But the thing is, I think what they did right was the character, the chemistry between Cliff Booth and Rick
Rick
Dalton,
Dalton.
Leonardo DiCaprio, and Brad Pitt. I think the chemistry was absolutely right, because if their chemistry wouldn't have worked, I didn't know what would have worked. And it is through their eyes that they are actually getting to know like how Hollywood is changing. And also, it's a very important era because I think at that point of time, it was also an era of the has-beens. So there were, like various TV actors who were trying to become, like proper Hollywood stereotype male heroes. But at that point of time, also there were also some kind of a cult classic. So they were not working well with the Hollywood transition and the dynamics that pulled it into that kind of person. And 1860s was a pretty dynamic era. We know what came during that point of time. We talk about the
1960.
1960s, right? Sorry, my bad. 1960s. So you know what came during that point of time? Like there were a lot of martial arts, action,
Mm.
and
There
like
were spaghetti western, Sergio Leone's
heavy
spaghetti.
westerns, European cinemas, Italian, like Italian, what do you say, Italian heists and stuff like that. It came and they show everything in the film. It's kind
Mm.
of that. So
But
it's
Abhinandan, like, what do you think about the music, like, of that film? Like, I wanted to ask you that as well, like, about the authenticity of using the music as well, like, not creating much of the original score, but retaining the songs which were like famous in this era, just like Mrs. Robinson. I would like point it out firstly, like, because I only knew that very song only, like Mrs. Robinson, because I watched The Graduate. That's the reason.
well, actually, I'm a huge fan of The Graduate too. The music is obviously Mrs. Robinson is also one of my favorites. I think they also promoted the music quite well within the trailers and the promos which came out. It was like Brothers Traveling Salvation, which is one of the pretty. This is one of the pretty recurring music that keeps playing throughout the entire film. And also there are a couple of like jazz and a little bit of what do you say, a couple of westerns that actually plays out throughout really very well. But forget about the music. I think the BGM was quite interesting. I mean, the part where actually, like Rick Dalton is shooting a western in black and white towards the beginning of the film, where he's sitting upon a horse, and you have all those Man from Uncle, the music, the soundtrack that is playing into it, and there's a stare that Leonardo DiCaprio gives to his fellow actor, and there's a zoom towards Leonardo DiCaprio. I think this was completely, like it's not only a love letter to Hollywood, but also idealizing the actors in a sort of a manner who were a part of, like what Quentin Tarantino, sorry, Christopher Nolan, I was about to say it. I do think that these directors do become self-referential, and therefore they get too much obsessed with their history and the past and everything. But I think that also works out pretty well, and that's what makes it entertaining. So I
Hmm.
think yeah, this was a good stuff that I saw in the theaters. So at that point, I did. To be honest, like there were a lot of other Italian posters and movies which actually did exist at a point of time, and the directors were absolutely right. Although they did change a few names here and there, but I think that was yeah accurate, absolutely accurate.
But
And
Abhinandan, yeah, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
no, no, please, you were saying something.
No,
So
how
yeah.
I was actually asking you, how hype were you when this film was kind of announced, and like when before this, just like before the release of this film, how hype were you? Like how many times did you watch the like the some footage available of that film, which was just a teaser, and I think like later on with the trailer. So how excited and how pumped up excited were you?
I was pretty pumped up. It's a Quentin Tarantino film. You can't afford to miss it. I mean, even The Hateful Eight was pretty boring. I didn't mind it though. I really enjoyed it in the theaters. And I think Quentin Tarantino has a history of, like shooting films in old film formats, 70
Hmm.
style kind of a thing. Hateful Eight was also that.
And
I
even
still
he
remember
retains his cinematographer, like Robert Richardson, even in this film as
Robert.
well.
Yes, he did that in this film also as well. And I think what really excited me was basically this unique uh, partnership between Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio. I think the casting was absolutely great. I mean, like you have Margot Robbie at the same time, and you have Leonardo DiCaprio. They both were spectacular in The Wolf of Wall Street, and then you have something like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then you have this romance going on, and Margot Robbie in the mix. Although Margot Robbie doesn't meet Leonardo DiCaprio till the end, which is a bummer. they're neighbors. And like Rick Dalton just gives a glance once or twice. Leonardo DiCaprio does give a glance once or twice. and there's a bit of flirtation over there. But it's really it's interesting, like what really came out towards the end. I think what we can define the cinema as, like it's a pretty interesting. I think the climax was the best out of the entire whatever the action was going on or it was unfolding. There's a pretty funny scene, like these guys are Austin Butler. I think Austin Butler, who recently played the biopic for Elvis,
Elvis.
he was there. Elvis, he was there, and I loved Elvis, by the way. Although I didn't love the third act of the film, but I really loved it, whatever it was. But I'll tell you what. So Austin Butler and two other people, three other women counterparts, they were sitting in the car, and Leonardo DiCaprio comes up with he's making ice martinis, and he comes out of the house and he's like, hippies in my driveway. And he takes the ice martinis towards Austin Butler and he says, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" Austin Butler gets very pissed off. But then there's a sudden discussion among these hippies that you might
Hmm.
call and say, "Oh my God, this guy was from the 14 Guns of McCluskey. He was my favorite this thing." And I used to have my car and the poster and the radio with his name and stuff, and then they get fantasized. So this idea, like the people who are coming there to murder him, they also are a huge part of Hollywood because they have. So I think the entire civilization of Hollywood is something you can't deny them. Is the right to watch films and the right to be with the films, even though they choose it for the wrong reasons. And that scene was so good. I really enjoyed it. And then obviously, like everything is coming on full. Brad Pitt is high. He's tasting his dog's food inside the house. Leonardo DiCaprio is out in the pool. He's enjoying his music, and then suddenly, ta-da! The door opens and Austin Butler comes in. I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business. And he points a gun at Brad Pitt, and he says, "Nah, it was something dumber than that." It was really really weird, and what unfolds after that is you
But
know
at
yeah,
at that point, I didn't imagine that he'll play Elvis in future, like in like in today's time. And actually, Austin Butler, I would say he is also scheduled to play a major part in Masters of the Air as well. Like obviously, people won't be able
he's
to
also there in Dune Part Two
Dune
also as
Part 2
well.
as well, but I'm excited
Yeah.
for Masters of the Air, obviously, since like for being a big fan of Band of Brothers and the following series, which is called, I think, the Pacific. Yeah, sorry, I just forgot that name for a little while. But yeah,
Pacific, the Band of Brothers. Yeah.
yeah, the
I if
entire
you yeah,
yeah, but
absolutely,
this is like by Apple TV Plus, Masters of the Air. But nevertheless, like I'm excited to watch him as well. Like in a very kind of different role. Obviously, he is in very much different roles per se in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and in Elvis. Baz Luhrmann's
absolutely.
Elvis, I would say, and like Masters of the Air as well. So I am really excited to watch him as well, and I was pretty much excited to watch like many other characters also in this film, especially like Emil Hirsch and Damian Lewis, and like all those special characters. Quentin Tarantino like had I think so many cameos in this, like the late Rick Perry and other like Hollywood, I would say TV actors much more, because Damian Lewis was
Yeah.
also, and even Timothy Olyphant is also a TV actor, like mainly. I think Timothy Olyphant, yeah, that
Damian
was
Lewis was there in Band of Brothers, Homeland.
Homeland as well.
Another one was
Billions
Billions,
as
where
well.
he was against not John Malkovich. He was against the other actor, and obviously, like David Lewis is one of my favorite actors actually. I like his body of work. I really do love his body of work. And obviously, Austin Butler is someone very interesting. I mean, the guy is very few and yet very powerful on the screen. I mean, like to pull off a 3 hour nighter on Elvis. And the third act, although I didn't like it much, but it was pretty much heavy for him to wear the prosthetics and to pull it off in that manner. I think it's like it was kind of a heavy toll for this guy, but he did it really well. And Baz Luhrmann is also one of my favorite filmmakers in terms
Mm.
of Romeo and Juliet. I mean, and obviously Moulin Rouge, which is now one of the favorite musicals in. Like
Yeah,
obviously in
I've
Hollywood.
watched it, Moulin Rouge, and like Matt and I discussed that film last year itself. So even he loves that film.
And who's the actor? The Star Wars, the Star
Yeah,
Wars
the
guy.
oh my god, like oh fuck, I just forgot about it. Like yeah, but
Ewan McGregor.
Evan
Ewan
McGregor,
McGregor.
Evan
Ewan
McGregor.
McGregor.
Yeah,
He's also one of my favorite actors. I think amazing cast. But I think what where exactly right now is like Hollywood is good when they do it very, like they do it in bits and pieces rather than doing it in a complete flow. Right now, Hollywood is completely consumed by the Marvel Phase 4 and the 5. Then you have the DC movie that's coming out. But obviously, like even Quentin Tarantino was attached to a Star Trek project, which I didn't get to see. And I don't think it's ever going to happen. It was just there. He was going to do it in a very weird manner.
yeah,
And
rated
I
R. I
just,
think there were very much rumors about him doing a rated R movie, rated R Star Trek movie. I was like, okay,
Star
why the
Trek.
fuck would he move? Because we don't know anything about Star Trek. Like, how would we watch like Quentin Tarantino's films? Like, I hope he doesn't do it. Like, there are many
No,
much
I
talks.
also hope that. I also don't hope Christopher Nolan gets a chance to make James Bond films. I don't want him to do that. No, absolutely no. I mean, like I'll tell you what, when Sam Mendes did Skyfall and Spectre, I thought he was a perfect choice. Like James Bonds are like one of those rare pieces of cinematic entertainments that needs to be made absolutely right. And what happens is James Bond can't be self-referential. You can't make James Bond self-referential. And that happened at a point of time when Danny Boyle stepped into the floors and he wanted to direct a James Bond movie at that point of time. And I was happy he stepped off because then that would have been completely a Danny Boyle film and not a James Bond film. And
Hmm.
that's what happens, right? And I know that Christopher Nolan is very obsessed. And even if you look at Dunkirk, or even if you look at Inception, or even if you look at the Batman, this very basic Batman, obviously the quartermaster thing, the James Bond thing, is everything is out there. It's absolutely there. Like he's very obsessed with those films. Even Zack Snyder, I feel at the point of times he does get the Zack Snyder is another one of the reasons why he shouldn't make superhero films. Rather than he should just focus on the 300 universe and the zombies and stuff like that. Because that's where you get to know that why like for famous Hollywood film directors or self-referential, they shouldn't try anything out of anybody else's page rather than their own. And I'm very excited to watch Oppenheimer. The first poster was amazingly explosive. And I think that Cillian Murphy as a lead and Christopher Nolan's movie is something very exciting that I'm dying to watch in
But
the next year. That's coming up.
Abhinandan, like I would just ask you, like I would like to ask you just one last question. What do you think? Like obviously, based on all the rumors which were and which are floating around, that like what will Quentin Tarantino's 10th and last film will be? Like, what do you think it can be? Like just like a random thing. I would ask you.
I want him to make a zombie film, a Western zombie film. I don't know what. The Walking Dead is that, I guess. Maybe some sort of something like a Walking Dead with a lot of twists and turns and stuff like that and gore and blood. And maybe, like a female prodigy, like a Kill Bill girl who is there in the zombie world, something like that. Maybe that's something. I wanted to go with a bang, ready to go with a bang. I
Hmm.
mean, like, obviously, I've seen his side of the history, I've seen his side of the violence. I know he can do violence well, but I know he can also do action pretty well. And I'm really betting that he does something in that space. Like a Kill Bill in a zombie world. I mean, I would really love to watch it. Like a samurai prodigy taking out
Hmm.
a sword. Like what was that famous cartoon that came out? Samurai Jack, right? The famous cartoon series that used to come out. So there's this cartoon character. His name was Jack, and he was a samurai, and his wife and his family, I don't know, was stolen away, and he takes up a sword and fights against the evil kind of like thing. So I think maybe in that kind of a sense, I would definitely. So what would be your idea? What was your
I
idea?
think like I just thought about it right now. That
Right.
like that would be a great idea where all of his characters, right, from Mr. Pink and like all those characters from Mr. Reservoir Dogs and like Pulp Fiction and all those like famous characters would be in one fucking movie. And like I don't know how, but like he would like if he would have a great if he has a great idea to just fit in all those characters in one movie, that would be kind of great. And obviously if he has a good story about it as well, so that would be a great thing as well. So I'm excited like to watch what he does in his full and final film. So let's hope for the best. Let's keep our fingers crossed. So
I hope he does a film with Henry Cavill once. I think they both will be a good fit for each other. I don't know why, but I think these guys will really help each other out in terms of taking out everything. And interestingly, Henry Cavill also listens to westerns,
mhm.
and
Let's hope.
he's a
Let's
huge
hope.
fan. So let's hope let them both do together. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So finally, thank you so much, Abhinandan, for coming to my podcast, which is called Spoiler Alert with me, Cinephile Sanket. It was a fucking honor to have you on your birthday, bro. So like it was such a good thing, bro. Like like getting you
I
on
was
your
born to
birthday.
watch. I was born to watch films. My dad introduced me to films. I think there's a connection over there. There's a synapse. But most importantly, right now I am envying you because you're wearing the Jack Ryan shirt, buddy. And now you're telling me on my birthday I want the Jack Ryan shirt. Give me that shirt.
Sure thing, bro. Actually, I got this from the premiere of Jack Ryan. So, like,
Oh, no.
yeah, that's went to the premiere of season one, which happened here in Mumbai. So I got that. But yeah, coming back to like, thank you so much for coming to my podcast, and I'll see you in another video, hopefully as well, super soon. And happy birthday once again to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Love being over here. Thank you.